Okay, so for those of you that don't know me, I'm a cardiology fellow training to be a cardiologist, and the whole point of this video is to just try and talk about certain cardiology topics with the goal of just kind of educating people on what I do, what to think about when they're going to see a cardiologist, questions to ask, and basically just to improve people's knowledge around the topic of their heart, because it's an important part of their body, and it's not something a whole lot of people pay a lot of attention to until something goes wrong. So currently I'm spending a lot of time in our stress lab, which is a place where we basically just do our stress tests on patients. So anytime a physician has a concern that someone may have a heart issue, they get a stress test to see if there's any either blockages to the arteries that go to the heart, or in some rare cases they send patients to us to see if exercising a patient will induce an arrhythmia. That's a whole topic for a different video, but it's something that can also happen. Most of the time when patients are coming to us, we're looking for blockages in those arteries that go to the heart. So there's four main stress tests. So there's quite a number of different stress tests. First basic one is what we call an exercise stress test. It's basically when we have someone hooked up to an EKG machine and we have them run on a treadmill for at the most 21 minutes. For the most part, we have a set heart rate target, and that heart rate target is it's a basic formula. It's basically 220 minus a person's age, and we want to get them to 85% of that difference. The goal of the whole point of that is to get your heart rate working hard enough to see if there's any damage that is done to your heart once the patient's heart rate is going that fast. So once we have a patient on the treadmill will increase in speed as well as how steep it is roughly every 3 minutes. And the whole point is to tire the patient out as much as possible. And when patients are walking on the treadmill in front of me, I'm pushing them as hard as I can because I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay. So after the patient is done, we get them back on the bed. We keep watching the EKG, just making sure that there's nothing else that pops up, and then once their heart rate gets back to baseline, we'll kind of send them home. We typically read the tests at the end of the day, and then we let their physician know what the results are afterwards. Once I go take it to one of my supervising physicians, we make sure I didn't miss anything, and then we'll send the results to their physician. Another version of that is an echo stress test, and what that involves is we do exactly what we did the first time, but we add the addition of an echocardiogram, which is basically an ultrasound test of the heart, to see if we can actually see parts of the heart wall, whether they're moving well or not. Other than that, the protocol remains the same. We have a patient get on the treadmill, they walk or run for as long as they can, and then from there, we see what we see either on the EKG or the echo. The third kind of test that we can do is what we call a nuclear scan, where we typically inject some medicine, it's technically a radio tracer, into the patient after they've been on the treadmill, and see how the blood flows to the heart. This one's a little bit more technical, and I won't get into the details quite yet, but the medicine goes to all parts of the heart, and we can actually see where the blood doesn't fill in the heart and see if there's any issues with the arteries that go there. The last kind of stress test that we deal with on I deal with on a regular basis is what we call a Lexi Scan, and that's a test where we give a specific amount of medicine to the patient to simulate an exercise stress test. It's not perfect. The best way to stress patients or get patients to do these kinds of stress tests is to have them exercise, which is why I always want people to exercise. But the medicine can help us whenever patients either they don't have a leg or they have a disability, or they just don't want to walk, or particularly old. Like, those are all things that we would use a Lexi Scan for, and it can be helpful. After the Lexi Scan is given, we use that radioactive tracer like I mentioned before, and we will inject that after for the patient, and then they'll go back up to our nuclear department and get more pictures taken of the heart. Alright, so that's kind of a quick rundown of the stress tests that we do. This is what I end up doing kind of every day when I'm on my stress test rotation. It's a lot of fun. You know, you get to meet a lot of people, and a lot of people that are particularly worried about their heart. It's always good to see that, because I want people kind of taking care of themselves, because if they're not invested in taking care of themselves, their doctor's not going to be able to help them either. Alright? Let me know what questions you have, and we'll go from there.